How's it going? Thad Brown here with you on the Endgame. It is Thursday, June 11th, better known as opening day for the World Cup. The world's greatest extravaganza sports-wise begins in the U.S., like literally right now, with Mexico and South Africa. It'll be a month or so of the best soccer the world has to offer. The United States should be competitive, should get out of its group. We're going to have a long chat today with a guy who knows a lot about the game, Aaron Lyons, former international player for New Zealand, coach here in Western New York. A lot to get to with the World Cup. We'll also talk Spurs-Knicks. Heck of a comeback by the Knicks last night. What it means, how their fans are kind of screwing it up a little bit. And we'll talk some Bills too. Off-season program is over. What does it mean and why are you probably taking it way too seriously? Thanks as always for joining us here on Rochester First. Appreciate it. Be with you for the next hour or so, talking all kinds of different sports. Let's get to that incredible Knicks game from last night. So the Knicks down 29 in the third quarter, down 20 in the fourth quarter, come back to win. One of the most amazing NBA Finals games you'll ever see. I think the stat going around today is like teams who were down 20 in the fourth quarter in the finals are like 3-374 or something stupid like that. Maybe it's in the playoffs. I don't know. It doesn't matter. This is as unlikely a comeback in this setting, in this round, as you can possibly see. Now, look, the number that I just quoted, the NBA Finals comeback number for the Knicks, although it's interesting and it is eye-opening, it isn't really emblematic of what the NBA is right now. And one of the things that I walked away from that game last night is that I was a little surprised how over the top the world seemed about how impressive the comeback was in terms of like what kind of accomplishment it was. It was crazy and it was unlikely, but it's also what the NBA is now. Like the Knicks, I saw another stat today. This is the fifth time in a playoff game a team has come back from 20 down in the fourth quarter. So in the history of the NBA, in the playoffs, what the Knicks did last night has happened 4 other times, which seems incredibly impressive, right? Like, wow, that's 5 times in the entire history of the NBA. So the other 4 all happened this century. The last 3 have all happened since 2012. And the Knicks just did it less than a month ago in game 1 against Cleveland. So look, this is an incredible comeback. And it takes quite a number of accomplishments, a number of successes to make something like this happen. You got to be really good to come back from 20 down in the fourth quarter and essentially 30 down in the second half. You got to make a lot of shots. You got to play a lot of good defense. You got to get some breaks too. You got to get some things that go your way. But this is not something that is a disparate accomplishment from what the NBA is now. The Pacers last year came back from 15 down in playoff games 5 times. The Pacers last year came back from 14 down with less than 4 minutes to play. So the Knicks coming back from 20, yeah, really cool and unusual for a finals game. But in terms of what the NBA has been in the very recent past, the last 2-3 years, 20 points is not the end of the world. If you pay attention to this league day after day all year long, and I know most people don't because it's a long season and half of it's covered by the NFL, which is what most casual fans have their attention dialed into. But if you do watch this league and pay attention to it, you don't have to sit there and watch games, but at least see what's going on night after night. A 20-point lead in the fourth quarter is not the end of the world. A 10-point lead with 3 minutes to go is not the end of the game. Not with the 3-point shot, not with the motivation a lot of these teams have to get shots up quickly. I never thought one time that the Knicks were out of it. I didn't think they'd come back and win, but even down 20 in the fourth quarter, I wasn't sitting in this game thinking, oh, this is done, I could turn it off. This is not how the NBA works anymore. There are too many possessions, too many opportunities, and too many ways these guys, these teams can score efficiently to say these games are done. Now, look, the Spurs had to play poorly to blow that lead, and they did. But it wasn't because, like, the Spurs losing that game isn't some out-of-body experience that no one's ever seen before. It's just simply San Antonio played poorly for the majority of the second half, and the Knicks didn't. And when that happens, you can turn around a 30-point game. It happens, at least anecdotally, all the time in the NBA. So here's a Knicks stat that was posted. NBA teams trailing by 20 points in the fourth quarter of a playoff game since 1997. The Knicks are 2-0 this year. The rest of the NBA, 3-750. A lot of that 3-750 is 10, 15, 20 years ago when teams didn't use the three-point shot as much. Once Steph Curry and the Warriors kind of changed everybody, or at least sparked the change if everybody looks at three-point shooting, then the idea of being down 20 in the fourth quarter, yeah, it's difficult. It's not easy to come back from. You don't want to be in that spot, but it is very doable. So as impressive as that Knicks win was last night, it is not something that only could happen in an alien world. This isn't, Michael Jordan, the Monstars doing Space Jam, for the fourth quarter. This is just one team playing well and the other team playing poorly. It happens. And it happens on a fairly regular basis in the NBA these days. Still, credit to the Knicks. This is not to knock the Knicks comeback. Again, to make that happen, you got to do a lot of things right, and the Knicks did on both ends of the floor, all the way down to the end. OG Anunoby with the block on De'Aaron Fox and the tip in, and then Karl Anthony Towns. I saw a piece of video today that finally confirmed what we all thought, that he got a really good piece of that inbounds pass at the very end of the game to where Stephen Castle was open for a basket. If Towns doesn't touch that ball, there's a decent chance that the entire conversation today is different. It's about how did the Knicks give up a bucket with 1.2 to go to lose a game that they were ahead of at home. So it's a hell of a comeback by the Knicks. It is a great accomplishment to win that game. But people were talking about it as the best game ever. Where were you when this happened? It's not that kind of thing. They just won game 4 on a really big comeback. That does happen. This isn't, people were comparing it to 28-3 with the Patriots and the Falcons. And I think the fair comparison is that in the NFL now, because of the way you can move the ball and throw the ball and go for it on fourth down, it's a lot easier now than it was 20 years ago to have a rally like that. But it wasn't even, I don't think, a proper analogy to that game, because it's a heck of a lot easier to come back from 20 down in the fourth quarter in the NBA when in 9 minutes you still have 15, 20 possessions. You don't even have to win all those possessions. If you think about each possession as a win or a loss, and I'm really guessing here, but let's say there's 20 possessions for each team left with 9 minutes to go, which is not ridiculous. You can easily get 3 or 4 possessions per minute. The Knicks don't have to go 40-0. You can go, 32-8 and be able to rally back from a 20-point deficit, especially with a 3-point shot. So heck of a comeback by the Knicks, no doubt. And in terms of the bigger picture about who's going to win the finals, this to me kind of cements away any discussion about the Spurs being a potential champion this year. I know the conversation today with the Spurs has been, they're not out of it. Don't overlook them. They might still have a chance. And they're talented enough to where I can see that being true. Like you can imagine in your brain Wemby and Castle and Dylan Harper making enough shots, playing enough defense. We saw it in game 3 to where they could win any individual game. The Spurs can win. You put the Spurs and the Knicks on the floor for any individual finals game, and there's no reason to think the Spurs can't win. But we've seen enough of the Spurs in crunch time in this matchup to be pretty confident that they're not winning 3 games in a row, even if 2 of them are going to be at home. So that game last night, that comeback, as cool a comeback as it was, and it was, again, a really impressive accomplishment, more so than, oh my Lord, look at that game that the Knicks somehow turned around. That was, we just put the Spurs away. That's really what the big picture, the end game of that game last night. It wasn't one of the greatest accomplishments in sports history. It was a really good comeback that finished off a series and most likely provided the Knicks a championship. Now, the biggest play, according to everybody who watched the game last night, apparently, was the De'Aaron Fox play at the very end of the game. So for anyone who didn't watch, the Spurs are up by 1. Knicks have the ball about 20 seconds to go. There's a Jalen Brunson layup that misses, and then the rebound bounces all the way to the other end of the floor. And De'Aaron Fox is the first one to grab it. Now, he gets the ball with 12.6 seconds to go. And I know this because there's a gazillion replays on social media right now, so it's impossible not to, take a moment to see exactly how much time was left. Oh, 12.6. How about that? So he gets the ball with 12.6 seconds to go. And he could try and dribble the ball away from whatever Knicks were chasing him down the floor and run some clock. But instead, De'Aaron Fox goes in for a layup. OG Anunoby blocks it. And I know there's a picture going around about with Anunoby's hand on a wrist as if he's committing a foul. That's not what happened. He got the ball first. I don't think you'd ever get a foul called in that spot, and I have no problem with no foul being there. So I don't want to hear any Spurs fans complain about the refs helping the Knicks in that spot. That's a good block. But the big controversy with that play is, why didn't De'Aaron Fox do anything except shoot the ball? Stand there, take a foul, dribble around, kill some clock. All of those would have been better choices, and they would have been. There's no doubt De'Aaron Fox made the wrong play in that spot. But the amount of angst centered on that play after the game last night on social media went off the deep end in a hurry. Is it the wrong play? Yes. But the complaint was about, well, why didn't Fox run the clock out and get fouled? That's the obvious play. That's what you should do. And yes, that's what he should have done, but not necessarily because, or really not because of the time and score situation. He gets the ball with 12 seconds to go. As I just pointed out, the NBA is a different league now. This isn't college basketball where you give a team the ball with 1 or 2 points in the last 30 seconds, down 1 or 2 points, and it looks like these kids have never run a college basketball play before at times. There's nothing worse offensively in basketball than a college team trying to get a shot off in the last 30 seconds down 1 or 2. It never seems like they ever figure out how to get anything open. The NBA is not that. These are professionals. So with 12 seconds to go, you can easily get 3 possessions if you want to really play the foul game hard there. So this game is far from over. The Spurs owning possession with 12 seconds to go up 1. Far from over. So the idea that De'Aaron Fox could just dribble around and that would have ended the game is ridiculous. It is not showing any understanding of what the NBA is right now, nor is it really properly digesting the situation. He gets the ball with 12 seconds to go. OG Anunoby's a step behind him. He's right there. Now, yes, Fox could have dribbled it to the corner. People were talking about he could go on baseline underneath the basket. He's not doing that. Anunoby's in the way. He's going to get a foul on him. If you want to kill the most time, the play is dribble into the corner and make Anunoby chase you there. And you probably would have burned a few more tenths of a second off. Again, he gets the ball with 12.6. You might get it down around 10. But that's as low as you're going to get it. And then Fox is going to have to make 2 free throws. Now, look, De'Aaron Fox is not the best free throw shooter in the NBA. He's a 76% shooter, which is good. It's right around league average. But if you're going to tell De'Aaron Fox, what are you more likely to get 2 points on? Shooting 2 free throws or attempting a layup? There's an argument for a layup. Now, I'll explain why in a minute, why it was a bad argument. But you can understand why he would take the bucket. Because the number one thing the Spurs need in that spot is not someone running the clock. They need 2 points. Because the Knicks are going to get the ball back no matter what. Whether he shoots free throws or even connects on a layup, whatever's going to happen, the Knicks are getting the ball back with no more than a 3-point deficit. And I had some people try and point out on X today that, the Spurs could play the foul game and the Knicks might never even get a shot off. That's not how it works in the NBA. Very rarely in the NBA do teams commit a foul up 3. I think that the reason is because with so many big bodies under a basket after a free throw, there isn't the trust that a missed free throw is going to be rebounded by the team who has the lead. The likelihood of, and this happens on a semi-regular basis too, the likelihood of a team bouncing a free throw intentionally off the rim and getting an offensive opportunity is much higher than it is in college. Now, in college is almost nothing, so much higher might be 5 or 10%. Regardless, The general approach in the NBA is to let teams play defense and not commit intentional fouls up 3 to prevent a three-point shot from happening. The other part of this, too, is, remember, in the NBA, what is a reasonable three-point shot? I mean, Jalen Brunson triggered from 27, 30 feet out at the very end of that game. So you can't, if you're going to commit a foul before a team shoots a three, it almost has to be in the backcourt now. You can't wait for a team to come across midcourt and then try to commit the foul, because you easily catch somebody in the act of shooting, because 30, 35 feet is well within most guys, not reasonable range, but you can make it from there. And guys will attempt shots from there. So you're not going to get an opportunity to just, like you do in college, up 3, foul until the clock runs out. So the number one thing the Spurs need when De'Aaron Fox gets the ball up 1 is 2 points. Whatever the best option for that is, that's what he should do. And there's a good argument in general for it being a layup. I mean, think about it this way. Let's say De'Aaron Fox gets the ball with 3 or 4 steps of room. So he's completely out in front of everybody, and it would be a easy, uncontested layup. If he pulls the ball down and tries to kill some clock, as many people have suggested he should have, and then he gets fouled and then misses one of the 2 free throws, and the Spurs lose on a 3 or an overtime, that's as equally a bad play as what he did. He wouldn't get killed for it because everybody believes that's what you should do. But the most important thing in that spot is De'Aaron Fox has to get 2 points. Now, he made the wrong choice. And the reason he made the wrong choice is not because there was 12 seconds to go. It's not because he, in theory, could have dribbled some time off the clock. He made the wrong choice because the guy bearing down on him was OG Anunoby, who's second-team All-NBA defense for the 3rd time in his career this year, one of the better defenders in the game, one of the better defenders in this series. Trying to attempt a layup against that guy, almost regardless of the time and score situation, that was the choice that De'Aaron Fox made incorrectly. And think about it, let's flip it the other way. If it's Josh Hart going to the bucket on a fast break with Victor Wembanyama bearing down on him, you would definitely tell him to avoid the layup where the 7'5" alien is standing. OG Anunoby might be a real human, but he's still a really good defender. That's not the play that you should make in that situation, or again, virtually in any situation, because Anunoby's probably going to block it, as he did. So was it the wrong choice? Yes, it was. It definitely was. And maybe Fox didn't realize how close Anunoby was to him there to understand exactly how much room he had. But in terms of a time and score, a situational play, I mean, people were comparing it to the Caden Boozer play with Duke and UConn back in the NCAA tournament. That's an entirely different situation. Duke is up 2 there with 6 or 5 seconds left to go, and it's college basketball. There's a lot more room for the team in front to get that game to the finish line than there is in the NBA. First of all, up 1, up 2 is just entirely different. If De'Aaron Fox had done that up 2, well, then yeah, absolutely. That's the dumbest thing you've ever seen. And it totally cost the Spurs a game. But up 1, you have to get 2 points in that spot. More so than trying to take time off the clock, which you're not going to get much of anyway, because there's not only OG Anunoby right there, there's 2 other Knicks defenders that are relatively close. So the idea after the game that De'Aaron Fox was the GOAT, that he was the one that cost the game, was ridiculously short-sighted. And I know there were a number of high-level NBA players and experts and media people who were posting that. I think that was a lot of knee-jerk reaction. Emphasizing the most recent thing, recency bias. But De'Aaron Fox did not end that game for the Spurs. And he wasn't even close. He wouldn't even make the top 5. That, at least individual play, does not even make the top 5 reasons why the Spurs lost that game. Among them, number 1, Victor Wembanyama, 9 for 25. You can't have your star missing that many shots. Number 2, Victor Wembanyama missed 2 huge free throws a couple possessions before that. The Spurs players not named Wemby, 5 of 24 in the second half. The Spurs got 5 field goals from players who weren't Wembanyama after halftime. They scored 30 points in the second half as a team after getting 76 in the first half. They shot way too many threes. I reposted on X today a shot chart that Bill Simmons put up, and it's just almost entirely threes for the Spurs in the second half. Poor coaching, poor shot decision, poor everything. And then you want to talk about reasons the Knicks won the game. We talked a little bit about Karl Anthony Towns. That's a heck of an underrated play to get a piece of the inbound at the very end of the game. It might have very well saved the game for the Knicks. And then the play that really decided the game was not De'Aaron Fox, but it was the Anunoby tip on the possession after that. And I know there's been some criticism of De'Aaron Fox doubling Jalen Brunson all the way out in the, again, 25, 30 feet from the basket. I think the double there made sense because the Spurs have been doing that to Brunson most of this series. They want to take him out of the game, make somebody else beat them. And I know Brunson pulled from 27, but you're not doubling him there to get him to take a three-point shot there. You're doubling him there because if you put any individual defender on him at any point, at half court, he's going to get around and find his way to 15 or 18 feet and try one of those fadeaways that he's really good at. So I didn't think there was much of a problem with doubling him there. The thing that was pointed out that I think made a lot of sense is they had Wemby in the double. It was Wemby and De'Aaron Fox. You want Wemby under the basket so that what happens doesn't happen. You've got enough good defenders, whether it's Castle or Harper, that you could run that guy in front of Brunson with Fox and have just as effective a double, and then you got the 7-5 guy under the basket to prevent the tip-in. There's a lot of criticism for Fox for being lazy on the play, not getting back to Anunoby. I think it's really hard to ask Fox to come out of a double team and go find out where the inbounder is to keep him from getting down the lane. I mean, Fox is he's had a bad series, so there's a number there's an amount of this criticism that he certainly deserves. But on top of the play at the end, which everybody thought was the only thing that mattered, and then you look and you say, oh, look at this other thing. Look at this other thing. Everything that De'Aaron Fox does now becomes the worst thing ever. I don't think not boxing out Anunoby on the tip-in when he's the inbounder from the other half of the court, other side of the court, is something you want to criticize him on. I do think if you want to put something on the Spurs coaching staff for putting Wemby out in the double team with Brunson, I think that makes sense. But really, end of the day, it's a heck of a play by Anunoby and a very, very fortunate play too. To get that bounce. I mean, there's nothing more like, other than the ridiculous things that happen at the end of hockey games with, for example, slap shots off boards that bounce off goalies and in overtime, which happened very recently. The ricochet off a 30-foot three-pointer, there's no understanding or guessing or anticipating where that's going to go. And for that ball to hit front rim and bounce to a spot where Anunoby had an advantage, that's fortunate. And then even the tip in, it's a good play to get the tip towards the basket, but getting it to go in, there's an amount of good fortune there. So heck of a comeback by the Knicks. And they made a number of really good plays down the stretch. At both ends of the floor. The Spurs played into it a little bit with poor shot selection. The Spurs certainly, and we talked about this a couple shows ago, the Spurs are the boys in this series and the Knicks are the men. And this game was another example of why that's likely going to be the deciding factor between these two teams. One team is ready to do the right thing late. The other team is not. Even though the other team just beat Oklahoma City in 7. And you cannot overlook what they accomplished in that series. But in this series, against a team of more mature, more experienced players, you're seeing the youth kind of overwhelm the talent when it comes to the Spurs. Even if they might be the more talented team and not be done yet, I think that is going to be the thing that alters this series. One other thing about this series, too, Knicks fans have been out of control, at least the clips we're seeing on social media. After the game last night, Knicks fans apparently went to the Spurs hotel as the Spurs were checking back in. And one thing about that, I wondered, why are the Spurs bothering to stay another night in New York? Just go back home. Someone pointed out that, I guess in the NBA, and there's now 2 days off before the next game, so you got a lot of time for the Spurs to rest. Instead of cramping your 6'9" and 7'5" bodies into an airplane for a late night flight that'll get in at like 4 a.m, go back to a hotel, get a reasonable night's sleep, and then go catch the plane tomorrow. Right? Makes a lot more sense. So the Spurs went back to the hotel, and a number of Knicks fans gathered around the hotel. The hotel, I guess, is only a few blocks away from Madison Square Garden, so not too crazy, to yell at them and taunt them and troll them after winning the game, to the point where somebody threw an egg at Wembanyama. And then a couple nights ago after Game 3 that the Spurs won, there's a video that I'm sure you've seen or heard about. There's a person in a Spurs jersey walking around New York running away from Knicks fans who want to attack him and ended up turning into a fight. I couldn't tell if the Spurs fan maybe asked for a little too much attention there. But again, there's how many Knicks fans out there and only one guy in a Spurs jersey? And this is what we're getting to with Knicks fans just feeling like that they can take it out however they want. It's become hard to get behind this Knicks fan base. And this fan base, you want to talk about fan bases that deserve a championship, and generally that deserve label is based only on the number of years since the last championship. Stuff like this makes it hard to get behind those guys. To say, hey, we're excited for you to have this opportunity, this championship, because as much as you want to be kind of riding the bandwagon of all the Knicks fans who are loving this, you see these videos with the fans just being jerks, and it certainly turns you off to the whole idea. Now, look, there might not be a team in the world that has a bigger volume of fans than the New York Knicks. It's New York City, and again, there's really no other team. It's not like Jets, Giants in football, Yankees, Mets in baseball. The Knicks are everything. So there might not be a single team in America that has a larger volume of fans than the Knicks. And that means there's probably a larger volume of jerks who are in that fan group. But we're seeing so much of this that as much as the Knicks are a fun bandwagon, and this is one of the greatest postseason glow-ups, ascensions of all time, to get behind it as a neutral, Knicks or Spurs fan, it's kind of off-putting when you see these videos and you don't really want to jump on the bandwagon. You might want to walk behind it a little bit and say, hey, good job. But jumping on the bandwagon when the fans are acting like this makes it difficult. Now, I'm not the best person to ask about that because I'm a Sixers fan and I'm generally going to be anti-Knicks in general. But the fan stuff has been, it feels like it's gone a little bit past the idea that it's only a few bad apples. All right, one more thing I want to get to here. So Bills minicamp is over. And the thing, and I talked about this earlier a couple weeks ago before minicamp began, this is not the time to be drawing conclusions. This is not the time for anyone to be worrying about who looked good at a practice or who won a rep or who, might be playing well enough that the coaches seemingly believe in them. Drawing conclusions this time of year from spring ball is just a total waste of time. And there are too many reporters out there who are giving you detailed practice reports, bills and otherwise. This is not anything that's going to be relevant. You don't know how many of these guys are working on something different. You're out there for, like, for example, if there's a receiver defensive back rep, the defensive back may not be trying to stop the receiver. He might be trying a new piece of footwork or a new technique that he's been taught. And if he gets beat by the receiver, it doesn't necessarily mean the receiver played well or even the defensive back played poorly. A lot of these practices don't even have a full complement of players. The second OTA practice that the media were allowed to attend, none of the starting defense showed up. And then on top of that, there have been 12 offseason practices and the media have seen 5 of them. So for us to walk away with, oh yeah, I think this guy looks really good. I don't know if that guy's going to work really well. It's ludicrous. It's silly. You're trying to draw conclusions on less than 50% of the available data for what happened in the offseason because, again, the media don't go to all the practices. And then you have no idea what someone is trying to do on a particular play. It is not simply just playing football. There's a lot of experimentation and trying things out and seeing how guys look or how things work. Michael Hoyt kind of talked about it, not in particular, but he was referencing what this time of year is like, and I think it kind of underscores my point here.
June football is like the most fun, maybe not the most fun, but it's a nice balance between it's serious, but it's also really fun. And so, yeah, it was good just to be out there and, feel like a football player again. I got my cool arm sleeve on. I'm starting to be swaggy again. I'm not just out there, no gloves, no tape, running around doing rehab stuff. Yeah.
So he's more talking about him as coming back from rehab. But when he says June football is a nice balance between serious and having fun, that's what he's telling the cameras. What does he really think about it? This is not serious getting ready for the season time of year. This is trying things out. This is figuring out what might work. So to go through each practice and say, I thought this guy played well, this guy played poorly, look at the reps this guy got, I think this guy might have, cemented himself as a spot there, look at the skill, this guy, look how fast. None of that matters. This is not the time for that. And selling your readers or viewers that report is doing them a disservice. And you can tell people what happened at a practice, but laying any importance on it, any relevance on it is not appropriate because it is way too early to know any of these things. No one in October ever says, remember we saw that in May? Remember that thing that happened in June? Wow, look at how it played out in the field right now. It is way too early to be drawing any sort of conclusions. You can make observations. You can learn some things that may or may not be true, but to look at spring ball and say, I think this guy has got a chance, this guy doesn't, it is too early for that. All right, we're going to take a break here. When we come back, I got a great interview with a guy who knows a lot about the World Cup, knows a lot about soccer. We're going to break down the world's greatest sporting event coming up after a break. My name is Thad Brown. This is Rochester First. The kids who all love the World Cup, they call it Rock One. We're back on the Endgame. Thad Brown back here with you on the Endgame. Got a great interview coming up with you here now. Aaron Lyons, who was a former New Zealand team player, is from New Zealand, lives in Western New York now, played for the Rochester Rhinos here in Rochester, also coached the Western New York Flash. As good a soccer expert as there is, he sat down with me for about 20 minutes a couple days ago to talk about the World Cup. Hope you enjoy this. Aaron, thanks for being on with us. Let me start with this. For a guy who's been in the world of soccer, who's lived in a number of countries, continents, how excited are you to see a World Cup that at least is going to be in the same country you're living in right now?
Oh, it's awesome. I've been so excited for so long, and here we are. We're right on the doorstep of the first game happening, right? And then first game is kind of a blur for me. All I'm focused on is Friday night, 9 p.m. Yeah, USA opening game in our country, hosting the World Cup, right? Just so excited, and I smile because I'm so excited for all the thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of young players that play the game, that get to watch this, feel it, live it in their own country, and that's just hopefully it's going to plant a seed, a soccer seed into those young girls and boys, and we just see the game thrive from here in this beautiful country.
Now, where is your rooting interest? I know we appreciate in America that the support you're providing, but you're originally from New Zealand. So how much is Australia maybe part of the Aaron Lyons desire for World Cup success?
Well, Australia, I'd like them eliminated in the group stage. Being a Kiwi, having represented New Zealand, obviously dear to my heart. I think just being in the World Cup is an incredible opportunity for a country of 5 million people. I was fortunate enough to play in 2 Confederations Cups, get over 30 games for my country. I feel so blessed to have done that, but I never played in a World Cup. So I'm rooting for New Zealand as a small nation. Yeah, can we look for a couple of an upset here or there? I'm flying to watch them play Egypt in Vancouver. I'm excited about that. And then the flip side of it, I've got 3 children, and my wife's American, so I'm into both teams. Thank goodness they're not playing each other. So I'm rooting for both. Yeah.
That's awesome that you get a chance to see New Zealand play, though, as well. I'm sure that was no small expense from what we're hearing when it comes to the World Cup. But let's talk about Team USA here. And when we talk about the U.S. men's national team, I think it begins a lot of the time and ends with Christian Pulisic and what kind of a star he can be. He went about 5 months without scoring a goal. That drought is now ended. But give me your take on what kind of form you think Pulisic is in as we go into this World Cup.
Well, I think you look at his career. His career has been unbelievable. He's a highly talented player coming through the U17s. He's played at the highest level in Europe. Continues to do so at a really high level. I don't think you look at it, what he's done over the last year. Honestly, this is a tournament. This is a 4-week tournament, right? If you're blessed to be in it that long, This is all about preparation is what it is. This is all about the opening game and those minutes once you get to that opening game and how you get momentum and hopefully US start like a rocket ship taking off, right? And just get momentum, the hardest thing to get in football, and can get that comes in different ways. So I think Pulisic is going to play a huge role. I don't think it matters what he's done previously. The only thing that matters is what he does over these 3 group games and get the US out of the group into the second stage game, and then he'll be evaluated. It's brutal football, but he'll be evaluated. His whole international career will be evaluated on what he gets done over the next 3 or 4 weeks for the US.
What level of a star is he? I saw an ESPN preview article ranking the top 50 players in the world going into this World Cup, and he was not even on the list. He's the best player, arguably, that the Americans have ever produced. But in terms of where he ranks in the world and what kind of a number one player is he heading into this tournament?
I think on paper he's behind Landon Donovan in terms of contribution to the national team, right? Landon Donovan had an unbelievable contribution to the US national team. I think Pulisic is right behind him there, and it's fully dependent on how the US and what he does over the next 3 weeks. He could catapult to be the biggest name in American soccer ever. And that top 50 list you're referencing, he's not on it, but what he does in the next 3 weeks, he could be in the top 10 on that list. That's the opportunity that these players have, and that opportunity exists in your comfortability in your own country. Yes, you're traveling to play group games, but they're in their own country, and the support behind them should hopefully just drive them on to be successful. That's what I hope happens. The country, I think soccer deserves it in this country, and but it's so exciting to know you've got that opportunity as players and as a national team over the next 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Give me your assessment of the rest of the American outfield players. At least it seems like there are a decent amount of attacking options with obviously Sergio Dest and Tyler Adams, who play abroad, and Weston McKennie, who play in Europe. But defensively, that seems to be the big question for the U.S. going into this World Cup. Is that the way you kind of look at it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I agree. And I think Dest and Robinson on the outsides they're exciting players. You saw that bomb that Robinson scored there in Chicago. Right, unbelievable strike. And then Dest so creative going forward. Robinson's a little bit further ahead, maybe on the defensive side of the game, but Dest so creative. Such a typical, Dutch educated outside back, if that makes sense. Yeah, the big question mark is how you defend at centre back. I think we're all looking at that, right? Anyone with a half educated eye is looking at how does Ream and then whoever's paired up next to Ream, how do they compete against world class opposition? And the defensively is always the backbone and stability for the attack. So I hope they do well, and I hope they step up and prove maybe a few people wrong defensively.
I want to get back to the defense just for a second, but up front, it feels like this is as creative a team as the Americans have put into a World Cup maybe ever, in terms of just the variety of options they have. I think a lot of the old teams talk about Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey. It was 1 or 2 guys and that was it. This team feels like there are more reasonable options to create goals than what the U.S. has had in a lot of other World Cups.
I agree. There's more versatility, and there's a deeper pool of talent to start games and then come into games. And that's going to be crucial. It's, a lot of games at that level are won between minutes 60 and 90, right? So players start games well, and then what do you have coming in, and what sort of impact do they have on the game? And I think the US is in, having played the US twice, I think they're in the best position they've ever been in terms of the depth of quality that they've got.
Going back to the back line, Chris Richards was one of the top defenders, suffered an ankle injury about a month ago. And apparently he is going to be available for game one here on Friday. And maybe even if it's not the opener against Paraguay, maybe at least deeper into the tournament. What kind of an impact can that player have, assuming he's healthy and ready to go in this championship?
I I think he can be massive, and sometimes you come off an injury like that, and it gives you a chance to freshen up. He's played a lot of games in the Premier League, right, this season, successfully. So he's athletically, has the level, international level. So hopefully he's going to be fit and can grow into the team and tournament, and the team around him has success. So sometimes that happens when you're not quite, maybe at 90%, you're not quite there, but the games give you that extra 10%. You grow with the tournament, right? So yeah, I hope that happens because I think he's key in that back line.
In your assessment, what the heck happened to American goalkeeping? I mean, it felt like if there's anything that America could count on going into these international events, is that there would be a top level keeper, whether it be Tony Meola, Tim Howard for a long time, and we had Matt Turner in 2022. Looks like Matt Freese this year. Why has that strength of this team seemingly gone away?
Well, that's a bit harsh, but yeah, we're definitely missing, maybe the big personality in there. Both the two that you referenced with huge personalities, right? Yeah, these guys seem to be a little bit, a little bit quieter side. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. The goalkeeper position has always been a huge position of strength here in the US, right? It's a position you could always lean on. Hopefully those guys grow into the tournament, can make the big game changing saves that we're going to need, right, to stay in games. And yeah, we'll see who he takes, who he picks, right? We don't know yet.
Sounds like Matt Freese. So give me your assessment on the guys that we are bringing. You said it was harsh, right? Why do you think the negative assessment of U.S. goalkeeping that I presented there is a little bit on the harsh side?
Well, I think you're going off that, not a huge international or European careers, right? Like Timmy Howard there, but yeah, I think both are decent. Freeze is pretty good in the air. Decent with his feet. Yeah, I think they'll hopefully step up and nail it for us.
What for you would be an acceptable result for the U.S. in the World Cup, and what would be maybe the most reasonable positive outcome? Maybe obviously this is not a team that's going to be, playing in the championship match, but what would be the thing where you're saying I could see them getting that far, but that would be everything goes right?
I'd love to see them get to that quarterfinal game. They made that game, I think it was in 2002, right, Thad? Yeah. So it'd be awesome to see them get to that stage. Look, the first game, the opening game's all about, like I said, can you get momentum? Can you get settled into a tournament type environment with the players that you begin the game with? But then can you have big impacts from those players entering the game? I'd be happy with obviously stoked with a victory. I don't care what that victory looks like. Whether that's 1-0, 2-0. A tie would be worst case scenario that I'd like to take. Going into that second game against Australia with a victory, I mean, that's going to put you in a really strong position to, maybe do you look at clinching in the second game there? If you take care of the first one. So I think Australia is a very realistic victory if you can take care of Paraguay in the first one.
As someone who's played in these kind of events, it's something that you feel like it's obviously a 4-year event. So there's a lot of run up to it, but kind of you referred to it a little that you make one mistake, you have one bad game, and all of a sudden everything is done. You can really change the outcome and the outlook of a team in 90 minutes, or a game and a half. As someone who's played in some of those events, how much pressure is there, and how difficult is it for a team that again has had months and months and months of run to realize that all that's going to be determined in maybe 90 minutes or a little more?
Yeah, I think that's really exciting for players, right? So, and when you're in that circumstance as a player, you've got all this talk in the background about a lead up, and all it is talk in the players' ears. That's just once you get there and what they're realizing now, wow, we're 2 days out from the opening game of the World Cup. That's where it hits you. That's where it hits you. And those players have the opportunity, like you said, within 90 minutes. There's no more meaningful games of football in a player's career than when you're at a World Cup on the world stage, the most viewed tournament of any sport in the World Cup, right? So, yeah, you can change careers within 90 minutes, and those players will, fully know that, I think knowing that excitement, if you can funnel that expectation as a player into excitement, that takes away pressure, right? That takes away pressure, and if they can do that and just understand, once you take care of that first victory against Paraguay, can we stay humble, grounded? It's all about recovery, right? And then go and take care of the next one. And if you just focus, you put everything into focusing on this tournament, it's a 3 weeks of your life. What happens after that happens after that. But can you entirely live, eat, sleep, and just live this moment while getting that time away as well as a player that you need, right? At the right times. But if these players indulge themselves and just focus completely on the task, then I think it's realistic that they'll get out of the group and get to that second phase game. And then once you're there, how are we paired up? What does that look like? US could make a really positive step forward here, get some real respect on the on the world stage.
You talk about getting out of the group, and then it sounded like you didn't really know what to call the next game, because this is the first time that there will be round of 32 games in knockout round.
Yes.
Expanded cup, more teams, more groups, more knockout rounds. Give me your take on that as someone who's obviously lived and breathed the sport for your entire life, that this is the first time we're going to have this big a World Cup.
I think it's great. I think the more teams you have in it, it's great. I wish that opportunity was around when I was
Right.
involved in trying to qualify. But I think you're also, I think managers will be able to handle their roster a little bit better, Thad. Right? You'll be able to maybe potentially be more inclusive towards a larger roster. I think I saw the roster size was 26. Right, that's a lot of players to be carrying. Those back end roster spots are really important. That the right characters and players, right, because their roles may not be that big when you look at it, but due to the alignment of some of these groups and the bigger pool of teams, do you as a manager at the right time have the chance to involve more players and potentially, right? So, especially if you're the bigger nations, the Spains, the Argentinas, Brazils. Can you involve more of your roster and give everyone a piece of the World Cup experience?
And maybe to that point, can you more properly rest the players that you want to have around for later in the tournament? Is that part of it too?
That's definitely part of it. Could be part of it, right? But really, it's all about starting well, and you're going to have a lineup and players that you think you can count on, and then as a manager, you're always going to be pleasantly surprised by players that step up into big occasions, right? And earn more minutes in a tournament type setup. So let's see what happens here in that second group phase game that I'm excited to talk about. Yeah.
You brought up Spain, and along with France and England, they're the top three betting favorites for the most part. Who's the team for you that you think is the favorite, the team that everybody should be chasing?
I'd love it to be someone that hasn't won a World Cup before, outside of the big dogs. It won't be Italy; they're not here. But Argentina, Brazil, Spain, England. Their league has been so incredibly strong, but then their manager, I mean, he's left out some incredible talent. So you wonder how that's going to go. So I think I'm hoping it's someone outside of those nations that have all got a couple of stars on their around their emblem. It's someone else.
I mean, people, by the way, I love that you brought that up. One of the cool little details is that if you have a World Cup championship, you get to wear a star for each one on the jersey, right? That's how it works?
That's how it works. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
actually looking at Germany's when they were playing the US. I think I saw 4 stars on theirs around the top. Yeah, so there's a little bit of room around the rest of it.
You brought up you want to see a team that or a country that hasn't won it before get a chance to raise the cup. Is there a country that you're looking at that might be outside the group of favorites that you think this might be their year?
um, Tough. Part of me was like, well, Norway. They've had some players come off some pretty good, successful seasons. They've got the best striker in the world playing for them. Are they an option? And then a top North American or a top African country. I was thinking about that last week. How cool would that be to have an African nation playing for a World Cup? And Morocco have done really well. So look, I'm going into it just anxiously awaiting, see who starts, who does well, who starts slow, who can grow into the tournament. I just find the dynamics of a tournament just so interesting, so interesting to view from the outside looking in.
And that last thing I want to ask you, what is the thing for you that makes this tournament so exciting? You're going to get a chance to see your home country play, which I'm sure is at the top of the list or close to it. But in general, when it comes to the World Cup, what is the thing about this that you look forward to most when this happens every 4 years?
Seeing world stars that we know at the club level play for their national teams. Some of the kids watching these games will be, oh, I didn't realize, such and such was playing for this country, right? Because they've only seen them play at the club level. Mm-hmm. And then, I always hope for success stories. What a great World Cup final the last one was, by the way. Unbelievable World Cup. One of the best World Cup finals ever, France, Argentina. But I always hope for an outsider, a smaller nation, someone who hasn't, been involved in it, someone who's represented a smaller nation, can surprise and have that momentum and get into these meaningful games. And then what do they do when they're in there? I look forward to seeing individual players respond to big occasions and big pressures and step up, and hope that that's inspiring for our younger generation to see those players step up and thrive in those pressure circumstances with 80,000, 90,000 people watching them and the world watching them play those games. So that's sport, right? That's the world game. It's the world game. I think from 8 billion people, almost half the world play soccer. So we're hosting that in our country, right? And I just I hope for the kids and families that those ticket prices come down and that they're affordable, and kids can go and watch those games because they're the ones you really want watching those games.
Couldn't agree more. Aaron Lyons, longtime player, manager here in Western New York, running the Western New York Flash Academy now. Thanks very much for joining me. I hope you enjoy your trip to see New Zealand and enjoy the World Cup like all of us do.
Thanks so much for having me on, Bed.
There you go, Aaron Lyons, talking about the World Cup, which is underway. Mexico and South Africa just about to get done with the first half. And I told him afterward, this is my favorite sporting event that exists. More than the Super Bowl, more than the NCAA tournament. This event is so cool and matters so much. You talk about the Super Bowl, or you think about the Super Bowl and the NCAA tournament. The Super Bowl matters to legacies and fan bases and cities, and being at the top in America of the number one sport in America carries a level of, I don't know, swagger that is hard to replicate anywhere else. When your team is, as a friend of mine who was a Broncos fan that I've known for a long time, once said when the Broncos won their first Super Bowl, his reaction to it, he said, it was April before the first thing I thought of in the morning was not that the Broncos had won the Super Bowl. So when you win that championship in America, that means such a big deal. That's still only here. For the rest of the world, that's pretty much the World Cup. There's national pride. The games are fun enough in terms of one great play can swing it. One fantastic piece of athleticism can be the difference. And I know a lot of people find the sport on the boring side because there aren't enough goals. And I get that. That's a reasonable criticism. But for how much it matters to so many people, for how much you can still connect the nationalism part of it, those are two big things for me. And then the best part of it for me is that this is the one sport that everybody plays where we are still an underdog, where the U.S. accomplishing something is still a surprise. Now, I know there's not a lot of enthusiasm for this American team. The run-up has been choppy, to say the least. We're much better than we used to be, but in general, we're still under-talented. As I pointed out, our best player doesn't even rank in the top 50 in the world right now. So this is not a team that's likely going to go to a championship. But every time we pick someone off, every time the United States wins a game they're not supposed to, it is super fun. And to be able to root for that team that's not supposed to do anything. Now, look, they're supposed to get out of their group. They probably should win a first-round knockout game too, depending on how they do in the group. But anything after that, that's the U.S. shocking the world. And to be able to root for that, where we're not always the best, where we're not always supposed to win, there are very few other spots you can do it. Winter Olympics have a few, hockey at times. This is the one really big event where we are the underdog. And it's a short event, too. I mean, you don't have to commit to 8 months like you do for a professional sports season. But really, again, it's going to be 3 games potentially and done. For some teams, you play poorly in the first 2 games and that's it. So it's not a long commitment, but it matters so much. And it's so exciting to be rooting for a team to where winning it is not, or not winning it is not seen as a failure. Every accomplishment is a really big deal. So we will talk more about the World Cup as it goes along for sure. Thanks for watching today. Appreciate Aaron Lyons for being on with us too. I'll talk to you again on Monday. I'm Thad Brown. Thanks for watching the Endgame. The news is next here on Rochester First. We're back again after the weekend.
Get the Rochester First streaming app today for everything you love from News 8 On Demand, plus exclusive shows you won't see anywhere else. Search ROC and download for free on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV.